Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Shodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodaranjana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Shri Radhe Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Shri Radhe Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Prabhujakacharya Saraswati His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Prabhujakacharya Saraswati His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimakti Bhakti Ananta Swami Nitanamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nivishesha Shadivani Pasitali Shadarane Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimakti Deve Swami Nitanamine Pracharva Gauravan Dakshana Java Bhakti Chana Padavarta Patara Purikaranya Yatsa Sarvachati Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Today we are continuing our reading on the Ganshra Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7. Canto 7, entitled The Science of God. This is Chapter 9. Prahlad pacifies Lord Nrsingadev with prayers. And today we are reading text 28. Does anybody know the meter for this verse that they'd be willing to share with me before I try to attempt the Sanskrit?
The meter for this verse is the same as the middle portion of Brahma Samhita, like the verse Chintamani Prakarasadma Sukampa Vriksha Laksha Vriteshu Suravira Viparayantam. Like that.
All right, thanks for Brew. Evam janam nipaitam prabhava hikupe kama bikamam anuya pratan. Kama bikaman anuya prapatan prashangat kritvat masat surasna bhagavan grihita soham katam nuvishaje tvava britya sevam evang janang nipatinang prabhavahi kupe kama bikamam anuya praatan prasangat kritva masat surashina bhagavan grihita soham katam nu vrishije tvava britya sevam evang janam nipaitam prabhavahi kupe kama bikamam anuya prapatam prashangat kritva masat surashina bhagavan grihita soham katang nu shruvrishe tvava britya sevam. Would anybody like to say the verse as well?
Evam janam nipatitam brabhavahi kupe kama bikamam anuya prapatan prasangat kritvat masat surashina bhagavan grihita soham gatam nuvishrije tava britya sevam.
Evam janam nipatitam prabhavahi kupe kama bikama manuya prapatan prasangat kritat masat surashina bhagavan grihita soham katam nuvishrije tava britya sevam.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else would like to chat? Evam, thus. Janam, people in general. Nipaitam, the fallen. Prabhava, material existence. Prabhava, of material existence. Ahi kupe, and a blind well full of snakes. Kama abhikaman, desiring the sense objects. Anu, following. Yaha, the person who. Prapatan, falling down in this condition. Prasangat, because of bad association or increased association with material desires. Kritva atmasat, causing me to acquire spiritual qualities like himself, Sri Narada. Sura Rishina, by the great saintly person Narada. Bhagavan, O my Lord. Grihita, accepted. Sa, that person. Aham, I. Katam how, nu indeed, Vishurjay can I give up, Tava your, Brittasevam, the service of your pure devotee. Let me check something. Interesting. Okay. Translation. My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, because of my association with desires one after another, I was gradually falling down into a blind well full of snakes, following the general populace. But your servant, Narada Muni, kindly accepted me as his disciple and instructed me how to achieve this transcendental position. Therefore, my first duty is to serve him. How could I leave his service? This is the, just checking, this wasn't the verse that was spoken yesterday, right? This was definitely today's verse. It says differently on the thing
Yes.
that Krishna story said that.
It's a different verse, yeah.
Okay, great. Once again, I've prepared for the wrong verse, but that's okay, because I wanted to do this verse anyways. Okay, translation. My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, because of my association with material desires, one after another, I was gradually falling into a blind well full of snakes, following the general populace. But your servant, Narada Muni, kindly accepted me as his disciple and instructed me how to achieve this transcendent position. Therefore, my first duty is to serve him. How could I leave his service? Purport. As will be seen in later verses, even though Prahlad was directly offered all the benedictions he might have desired, he refused to accept such offerings from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. On the contrary, he asked the Lord to engage him in the service of his servant, Narada Muni. This is the symptom of a pure devotee. One should serve the spiritual master first. It is not that one should bypass the spiritual master and desire to serve the Supreme Lord. This is not the principle for a Vaishnav. Narottam Das Thakur says, Tandera Charana Seva Bhakti Sanavas, Janmane Hoy E Abhilas. One should not be anxious to offer direct service to the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advises that one become a servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. Gopi Bharatu Parakamalayor Das Anudas Anadas. This is the process for approaching the Supreme Lord. The first service should be rendered to the spiritual master, so that by his mercy one can approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead to render service. While teaching Rupa Goswami, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Guru Krishna Prasade Paya Bhakti Lata Bij. One can achieve the seed of devotional service by the mercy of the Guru, the spiritual master, and then by the mercy of Krishna. This is the secret of success. First one should try to please the spiritual master, and then one should attempt to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also says, Yasya prasadha bhagavat prasado. One should not attempt to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead by concoction. One must first be prepared to serve the spiritual master, and when one is qualified, One must first be prepared to serve the spiritual master, and when one is qualified, he is automatically offered the platform of direct service to the Lord. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj proposed that he engage in the service of Narada Muni. He never proposed that he engage directly in the service to the Lord. This is the right conclusion. Therefore, he said, Soham katam nu vishajay tvabhritya sevanam. How can I give up the service of my spiritual master, who has favored me in such a way that I am now able to see your face? Prahlad Maharaj prayed to the Lord that he might continue to engage in the service of his spiritual master. Nectar. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuramitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadadmayam Dadanti Swapadantikam. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhu Bhyebhata, Patitanam Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. Translation again. Oops. Just kidding. Why does it do this? Okay. Sorry, my computer froze, so give me 1 second. Okay. My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, because of my association with material desires one after another, I was gradually falling into a blind well full of snakes, following the general populace. But your servant, Narada Muni, kindly accepted me as his disciple and instructed me how to achieve this transcendental position. Therefore, my first duty is to serve him. How could I leave his service? Wow, what a nice verse to speak about, as I somehow have the bad karma of preparing for the wrong verse. I prepared for 29 today, but actually this verse is so nice. When I was reading it, I was thinking, this is a nice verse to give class on. I'm sure, and then I was thinking, I'm sure the Kali Damana Prabhu who gave class yesterday gave such a nice class on this verse. But my good fortune that I get to speak on this verse today, all about the glories of the spiritual master. So I recall at some point in time, this last phrase, this last sentence in the translation always really sticks out to me when I've read it in the past. How could I leave his service? I was thinking about this recently, actually. I was remembering how my spiritual master has totally, completely transformed my life. And I was thinking about this because in our new apartment where we're staying, the person who's staying right next to us is this young girl. She's like probably like 18 years old, and she's been removed from her family. Her family like kicked her out, basically. And so many different people, like her friends' moms and this woman who teaches at the high school where she goes, have been helping her so much, like co-signing on her lease, because obviously she doesn't have like credit or enough money to pay for anything, and coming over and bringing her groceries and everything. And I was I get to like and observe this girl because I'm her neighbor, and I was kind of seeing her friends and what she dresses like, and how she interacts and stuff. And I was thinking, wow, yeah, like I don't know anything about her situation, but I was just looking at her person, and I was remembering what I used to be like when I was 18. And I was like, wow, I was such a rascal, and I was so like paving such a nice, clear path for myself to the hellish planets. Like, it was a really clear path. Like, I was putting like clearing out all the weeds, putting mulch on the trail, like making it a really nice, straightforward path to like take birth in a hellish body. And yeah, knowing nothing about the Supreme Lord and having absolutely no God consciousness and coming from a family of complete scientists, I was like, there's no God. Of course there's no God. How could there be a God? And then somehow, by the absolute mercy of Krishna and the devotees, I got a chance to meet my spiritual master, who completely transformed my consciousness to something completely different. now being able to have a slight inclination and slight faith in Krishna, and a slight desire to think about chanting his holy names with attention, and wanting to not have to take birth again, so I never have to go through the experiences of having to move house so many times in my lifetime. So there's a purport. If I would have prepared for this verse, I would have had all of these on hand, but I don't, so I'm just pulling them off my memory here. But there is a purport in Bhagavatam where it speaks about the glories of the spiritual master and how he is able to transform the consciousness of the devotee, and actually like turn them into a completely different person. And I'm always thinking about this point. It is very amazing. And I was, of course, remembering it recently because I see this girl all the time, and I'm like, yeah, I used to be kind of like that when I was 18. Kind of like a rascal, and, you know, just, of course, now everything's so much more degraded than it was when I was a teenager. Like, to the max with social media and everything. It's this, like, a whole other level of hellish interactions with people. But yeah, the spiritual master, his glories, he has the ability to transform the consciousness of his disciple and turn them into a Vaishnava, a devotee of the Lord. And it talks about in Bhagavad Gita in the 4th chapter that the secret to success is actually to please the spiritual master. I think it's in 4:9. No, maybe it's not. I think it's 4:8. I can pull it up actually. But let me see. No, it's not 4:8 either. 4:8, 4:9. I can't remember. Maybe it's 4. Anyways, it's one of those key verses in the 4th chapter. I can't remember exactly which one it is. But anyways, yeah, Srila Prabhupada's talking about the secret to success is the satisfaction of the spiritual master. So if we learn how to please the spiritual master, and that's actually the secret to success, because he'll recommend us to Krishna or to Srimati Radharani, and then she recommends us to Krishna. And then in that way we're able to, perfect our lives if we can please the spiritual master, who is our connection with the Supreme Lord. And of course, everything's possible in our spiritual lives due to the mercy of the spiritual master, who's accepted us as his students, as his disciples, and by following the instructions of the spiritual master, we're able to make gradual advancement on the path of bhakti yoga, or Buddha yoga, and then ultimately achieve that desired result. What was I gonna say? And yeah, so it's to serve the spiritual master, to follow his instructions, should be the goal of the only goal of our lives for the disciples who are engaged in Krishna consciousness. And there's this very nice pastime in Krishna book, one of my favorite pastimes. A pastime with Sudama Brahmana and Krishna, when Sudama is on the plea of his wife, who's trying to encourage her husband to please and go see Lord Krishna, so that they can get some little material wealth, because they're living in such a poverty-stricken condition that it's actually unfit for their service to the Lord. So much so that when Sudama finally agrees to go and visit Lord Krishna, his wife has to go and beg for some chip rice from her neighbors, so that she can give something to her husband to offer to the Lord. And we know chip rice is like flat rice, like poha, you know, it's just like so insignificant. Like that's not going to satisfy anybody, like a small handful of chipped rice, like dried, flaky chipped rice. you need, even if you soaked that in water and cooked it, it would still just be like, it doesn't like poof up so much. It would still be such an insignificant quantity. So anyways, she goes and she begs from her, fellow hermitage ladies and houses for some chip rice so that she can put it in a small little bag and then give it to her husband so that he can offer that to Krishna when he goes. As is the custom, when you go visit someone, you always bring a gift to offer to them. So yeah, he goes and he visits Krishna and he sees him in his palaces and he's so like, wow, these are huge, oh my gosh. But Krishna is so kind. When he comes, he invites him into his home and he washes his feet and he serves him so nicely. And even his wife, Rukmini, comes and starts fanning. And then he starts relating these pastimes from when they were children in the house of their spiritual master. And how it was, they were staying all together, and how one night their spiritual master needed some wood to start the fire. So both Krishna and Sudama went out into the forest to collect the wood, and how then there was this like great storm, like super scary storm that came in. And of course, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He controls Indra, who controls the weather. Not a blade of grass moves without his sanction, but still he was playing the part of like a scared little boy alone in the woods, which is scary. It's scary to be alone in the woods, and then there's a huge storm, and everywhere you look there's shadows, and you don't know what's what, and it's raining, and you don't know which way to go to get home. But he was there with Sudama, and they were just like huddled underneath a tree and holding hands, and they had this little pile of wood, and they didn't want to leave the wood and run back because the wood is for their spiritual master. So then the spiritual master is at the hermitage and is looking for the boys and wondering where they are, and they're not there. So he becomes worried, and he sends out a fleet of Gurukul boys to go find the two missing boys. And when he comes across them in the morning, he's so indebted that he sees that they have collected the wood, and he says, and Prabhupada says in the purport, like, this is the debt to the spiritual master is hard to repay. Maybe someone has the exact verse for me they can find. But the gist of it was like the debt to the spiritual master is almost impossible to repay, but the way that we can repay that debt is by doing service, is rendering some service to the spiritual master. Let me see if I can find the exact word for word, because it's quite nectar. The Sudama Brahmana pastime is in the Krishna book, and it is chapter 81, and it's in the purports. It's devoted. Let me see if I can find it quickly. It must be earlier. Okay, 5 seconds more. Krishna. Yeti is obliged. She snatched the bundle of chipped rice. Speaking, my dear morsel of chipped rice becomes goddess of fortune. Oh, okay. I don't know where it is, I guess. Maybe it's not in this chapter. Anyways, yeah, it's a really nice part. Maybe it's in the 10th canto instead, and not in this part. Anyways, I'm sure you guys all know what I'm talking about. Anyways, but yeah, it's a really nice part that the debt to this, the disciple has this debt to the spiritual master that we can't really pay off, because the spiritual master's taken us out, like plucked us out of the material world and put us in Krishna consciousness and given us complete opportunity to become, given us like the golden ticket, like, here, follow this process and you'll go back to the spiritual world. You'll go back to be with Krishna. and that's a kind of a debt that the disciple can't repay. But by rendering service to the spiritual master, then one can start to repay that debt to the guru. So yeah, that's very nice. And what is that service? Well, for some devotees, they have the fortune of having like direct instructions from the spiritual master, like the spiritual masters, do this, do this, do this. Very clear. But we also have general instructions that we get, like, chant 16 rounds every day. If you're initiated, chant 16 rounds every day. You've taken that vow to do that to the spiritual master. That's a very deep thing. Chant 16 rounds every day. Follow the Four Regular Principles. Read Srila Prabhupada's books. Of course, different instructions for different phases of life are there. But the instructions are usually pretty general, or can be given in a general manner, but they can also be given in quite a personal manner as well. I have a little book at home full of quotes that I've picked up from like different instructions that I've picked up from different classes that my spiritual master has given, that have been either general or sometimes ones taken from darshans that I have written down. And yeah, some of them are funny and sweet, and some of them are like really straightforward. I remember once in one class, I was asking a question. It was very like, I don't know, mystical in a sense. I had just been away visiting my mother in Colorado for a couple of weeks, and I was staying at her house, and she's got a nice little cabin in the middle of the woods. It's like very quaint and quiet, and there's like nobody around. So I was staying there, and I was really enjoying the quietness and the mountain cabin vibe. It's very Colorado, and although I've been taken out of Colorado, the Colorado-ness is still kind of there in a sense, like the hippiness. So anyways, I was really appreciating the Colorado scenery and everything, and then when I came back, it was to the ashram and to New Zealand, and I was asking some question about, like living differently, but I had this desire that I wanted to stay there. And then my spiritual master looked at me and he said, like, you can't see it, but the illusionary energy has a gun pointed right at your head. And because he was asking, like, what are you planning on doing? You think you can just stay with your mom in your cabin and then do what? Like, gonna get a job, or are you just gonna stay there and like float around? Of course, this was in like a huge assembly of devotees to make it even more like painful. And then he said, yeah, the illusionary energy has a gun pointed at your head, but you can't see it. So just stay in the association of devotees and everything will always be all right. So I like to hold on to instructions like that come through classes that are just like, oh, this is an instruction that I can take for me. Like, always stay in the association of devotees and everything will always be all right. As soon as you leave the association of the devotees, the Vaishnavas, then things can get a little tricky, a little mixed up sometimes. You can start to blur the lines of what's reality, what is, for Krishna's pleasure and what's not for Krishna's pleasure. Okay, so what else can we talk about in this verse? My computer's still frozen, so I can't really see what's going on. Yep, totally frozen. Okay, oh, you guys are here. Great. Okay, so this verse, let's see. So, one should not be anxious to offer direct service to the Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, advised that one become the servant of the servant of the servant. Gopi Bharata Pada Kamalayor Das Anudasa. This is the process for approaching the Supreme Lord. The first service should be to the first service should be rendered to the spiritual master, so that by his mercy one can approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead to render service. So yes, we should aspire to be the servant of the servant of the servant. Das anu das anu dasaha. So what does that mean? It means following. And I was actually listening to this nice class yesterday by His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami, and it was a class on humility and how he was speaking about how we call other devotees Prabhu. So Prabhu means master. So we see other devotees as master. Like, I see you as master. That's why I call you Prabhu. But sometimes we just call people Prabhu and think, actually, I'm Prabhu. I'm the master. You should all see me as master. Yes, call me Prabhu. I am master. But this isn't the right mentality, because as soon as we start to see, I am master, I am in control, then we are not seeing things in relationship to Krishna's energy and to Krishna's service. But the correct mentality is, Prabhu, like, you are my master, how can I serve you? And then having this mentality helps us towards the goal of being the servant of the servant of the servant, which is the position that is most attractive to Krishna, being able to be humble and think, I am the servant of the servant of the servant. Even in the spiritual world, the pride, quality of pride is unattractive to Krishna, as we hear about in Krishna book, in that very sweet but yet confidential pastime where Krishna disappears from the rasa dance and he's with one of his most beloved associates, and she becomes a little proud of her position with Krishna, and then he disappears from her vision. Of course, all of this is to increase the love more and more, but even in the spiritual world, this pride is not such a nice quality. Although Krishna has it too, because everything comes from the Supreme Lord. All the qualities do. So, yeah, we don't want to have this pride, like, I'm in control, I'm so great. Yes, you should all serve me because I know what I'm doing. I'm onto it. This is not conducive for our devotional service. I remember this one time very clearly when I was cooking in Wellington at Bhakti Lounge, and I got rather good at cooking, by myself for a large quantity of people, and I would get kind of proud, like, yeah, I can cook for like the whole program by myself. I don't need anybody's help. You guys all go on Sankirtan. I'll just cook for everybody. Sort of this pride came up. And I remember one day I was cooking in the kitchen and I was thinking kind of like this, and I was opening a can of tomatoes, and they had this industrial can opener where you like smash this thing down and then you crank it, and it's like this big sort of lever. And I had this big can of tomatoes, and I was thinking, I'm so great, I can do all of this by myself. And I just like lightly, touched the can opener to the can of tomatoes, and then as soon as I tried to open it, the whole thing just totally exploded and went all over my clothes and all over the kitchen. And I was just like, oh right, I'm not in control. Krishna's the controller. I actually can't do anything. Anything I do is through my spiritual master's mercy. Like, I'm actually not in control. It was very humbling, and also made me realize, like, oh right, like, if I have this pride in my service, then Krishna's not there to help. And we need Krishna's help and the spiritual master's help to do anything, because we aren't full. We don't have full qualities or full control. We're lacking in so many areas, and Krishna, he's there to help fill in the gaps where we lack so that our service can be complete. But if we're proud and thinking, no, I got all this, I don't need anybody's help, I can do everything by myself, then, yeah, Krishna's not there. We're just there. And what can we do by ourselves? So yeah, this mentality of being humble, like, I am the servant of the servant of the servant. My position is so low. It's actually a very hard position. It's not a super easy position to get. I know for myself, I'm so proud and I'm very entitled, and it gets me into a lot of trouble. And it's hard for me to think I am the servant of the servant of the servant. Like, I like to think that's what I'm like, but in reality, I'm actually not very humble at all. And So to actually think, I'm the servant of the servant of the servant, and then to act in such a way where we're actually acting as the servant of the servant of the servant. Yeah, it's actually a high position to get to, and to have that level of humility where we genuinely think, I'm just here to serve, and I'm just here to serve you so that you can serve Krishna and I can just assist in your service. It's a really sweet mentality, and it's actually really beneficial for our devotional service and our chanting and everything, because that is like, the real essence is like, I'm here just to please Krishna. Whatever I can do to please Krishna's service is like how I can assist. Not that like, I want to be this, I want to be this, like I want to be the pujari, the main pujari, or I want to be the main cook, or I want to have this position or this position so that everybody can recognize that I'm so great. But that's like, I'll do whatever is necessary. Like Tulsi Prabhu was saying in his class the other day, the essence is, it is like, whatever I can do to give Krishna pleasure, I'll do that. Even if it's like something that I don't necessarily want to do, it doesn't matter. As long as it gives Krishna pleasure, then I'll do it. And that's like that's the mentality of like, I'm the servant of the servant of the servant. Although people, like, I know so many nice, amazing managers who are managing so nicely, and they're also so humble. They're just thinking, I'm in this position of management, but actually I get to serve all these devotees so that Krishna's service can go on. So that having that mentality of servant of the servant of the servant doesn't necessarily mean that like you sort of neglect responsibilities and taking on responsibilities for Krishna's service. But it's just like an inward mentality of like, I'm here just to serve all of these devotees so that Krishna's service can go on. Or I'm here to protect all of these devotees so that Krishna's service can go on. Yeah, so it's a really nice mentality to develop, and I'm still so far away from it. So I'm just speaking about it from what I've heard from others. Not that I actually have any real practical experience of it. So this verse, I'll just wrap up, is very nice verse glorifying the spiritual master, and how by serving the spiritual master, who's like taken us out of the material world and saved us, like literally saved our lives, like how can we leave that service? How could we abandon what the spiritual master has given us? He's like given us so much that the debt is it's huge. It's almost insurmountable to try and repay in this lifetime. But if we serve the spiritual master through following his instructions and serving the devotees of the spiritual master, then we're able to make a lot of progress in the right direction. So I'll finish there. I've got about 15 minutes before 8. If anybody has any comments or corrections or questions or anything they'd like to share, please, you're most welcome to.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I want to say Hare Krishna. Thank you
Hare
for
Krishna.
thank you for a wonderful class. This is a spectacular verse, really, really nice. Srila Prabhupada speaks on this so often. Very, very important to understand. In a general sort of way, devotees want to go back home, back to Godhead, for a host of reasons. But the actual path back home is nuanced. There are stages. There are platforms of consciousness that have to be achieved step by step. It's not that you just go straight back home. You have to develop through the process. And so this verse highlights one of the very important stages that a devotee does not, an advanced devotee, a pure devotee, does not aspire to serve Krishna directly. But as Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport, one must first be prepared to serve the spiritual master, and when one is qualified, he is automatically offered the platform of direct service to the Lord. So the correct process is not that one can aspire for direct service to Krishna, but that's not our endeavor. We're not qualified for direct service to Krishna. Our first endeavor and our first prayer must be simply to render service to the spiritual master, to whom we are very greatly indebted. Srila Prabhupada described that debt as being so great that it is unpayable. Then that in innumerable lifetimes you cannot repay that debt. It is so great. What the spiritual master is doing for us is such a great thing that we become so greatly indebted that we can never repay the debt. But we have to try. So we dedicate our life and our life after life, repeatedly serving the spiritual master in whatever capacity. Janmani Janmani Ishvare. That's the aspiration of an advanced devotee. He simply wants to serve the spiritual master. Then by service to the spiritual master, a devotee becomes pure in devotional service. And when he becomes actually pure in devotional service, then he actually becomes qualified to go back home. But a pure devotee he actually does not even aspire to go back home. He doesn't care where he is. He is desireless and does not even desire to go back home. The qualification for going back home is that you don't want to go back home. You just want to serve Guru and Krishna in whatever capacity, wherever you are. You don't care where you are. A pure devotee is prepared to take birth repeatedly again and again in the material world, to accept a material body, and just simply serve in whatever capacity will please the spiritual master. That mentality is the ticket for going back home. That's pure Krishna consciousness, and that actually will make it possible to go back home. So advanced devotee does not pray to go back home. He just prays for the capacity to please his spiritual master, that somehow or other he may be able to please his spiritual master, and he endeavors with his utmost energy somehow or other to please his spiritual master. Because every opportunity that he has come by the grace and mercy of his spiritual master. Even Srila Prabhupada used to pray in this way. He didn't necessarily pray for direct service to Krishna, but he was always glorifying his spiritual master and expressing this same mood. There was a prayer that Srila Prabhupada wrote while he was on the Jaladuta, traveling to the U.S. And in that prayer, he quotes Prahlad Maharaj, this very same verse. He quotes this same verse. because that was Srila Prabhupada's mood. He was coming to the United States in service to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. And he, in various ways in that prayer, he offers his respects and gratitude to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. His At every stage, Srila Prabhupada's mood was always just simply how to please his spiritual master, trying to fulfill the order of his spiritual master to preach to English-speaking people in the Western world, to print books. That was Srila Prabhupada's focus, always just somehow or other to please his spiritual master. If you can do that, if you can please your spiritual master, then your path back home is clear. Srila Prabhupada would sometimes say that then your mission of life is successful. Just somehow or other, try to put a smile on the face of your spiritual master. First and foremost, don't worry about trying to go back home. That's a very, very lofty objective. But just try to please your spiritual master somehow or other. That's doable. You can't really please Krishna. What can you possibly do for Krishna? He has everything. He's always surrounded by the topmost devotees. We are fallen and insignificant. But we can, Krishna is difficult to approach, but we can approach his devotee. We can approach the spiritual master. He is very approachable, and we can render service to him in all kinds of ways. It's not difficult, or even if it is difficult, it's well worth it. So if we actually want to go back home, an intelligent devotee does not pray to go back home. He prays for service to his spiritual master. He prays to be able to please his spiritual master. And then, as Srila Prabhupada says, direct service to Krishna, which is going back home, becomes automatic. You don't have to endeavor for it separately. You just have to somehow or other try to please your spiritual master. So to understand this is critical. You know, we want to go back home. We have to understand clearly what the path is, and the path is it's not direct. You can't just simply step over the spiritual master and approach Krishna. It's completely out of the question. The path is, the only path is, you have to approach Krishna through the spiritual master. The spiritual master will give you the qualification to serve Krishna directly. And without that, there isn't a hope. There isn't any other way. That's the only way. So you have to perfect your service to your spiritual master. You have to inquire of the spiritual master what he would like you to do. How can I serve you? How can I please you? What would you like me to do? And you surrender to the spiritual master, heart and soul. Just give everything to your spiritual master. You'll never be a loser. You will only gain, you will only benefit. And ultimately, he will qualify you to serve Krishna directly, and you can go back home. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is quoted by Srila Prabhupada in his purport. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, in his commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, for this particular verse, he had an unusually long purport. His commentaries tend to be rather brief, although they're packed with meaning. They are often of relatively few words, but for this particular verse, he offers a few paragraphs with some quotations. And we have a little time, and no one else has got their hand up, so I think I'll take advantage of the opportunity and I'll read a little of this. He says, and he often in his commentary, he will play the role of the personality who is speaking in the verse. And he does that in this case. He is speaking as though he is Prahlad Maharaj. He says, you have said that service, or is he, is he speaking as Lord Nrsimhadev? He says, you have said that service to me is the cause of my mercy to you. You have excluded favoritism by the example of the desire tree. But what is the cause of this service? Following persons with concepts of high and low, filled with all desires, who have fallen in the material snake hole. I have also fallen in by their association. I have been accepted by Narada, who has made me his own possession. Let this jiva be mine. By force he has taken me by the hand, brought me near to him, taught me the king of mantras, and had me serve him. Having fallen in the hole of samsara, I have now become your devotee. Without his mercy, this was not possible. How can I give up service to my guru, your servant? The karmis and gyanis, on attaining their goal, give up the sadhana. I cannot be like that. On the path of bhakti, when the sadhana gives results, devotees who attained the Lord, such as Dhruva, still had a desire for sadhana of associating with devotees and other processes. And then he quotes from the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 9, text 11. O unlimited Lord, may I always have the association of great devotees with pure hearts who perform bhakti to you. By this association, intoxicated from drinking the nectar of your pastimes and qualities, I shall easily combat the ocean of material existence full of terrible suffering. And then he quotes from the 10th canto, 69th chapter, text 18. Now I have seen your feet, which grant liberation to your devotees, which even Lord Brahma and other great personalities of unfathomable intelligence can only meditate upon within their hearts, and which those who have fallen into the well of material existence resort to for deliverance. Please favor me so that I may constantly think of you as I travel about. Please grant me the power to remember you. Considering this, I pray that you take me to the side of your servant. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. That's what I have to offer. And we've reached 8 o'clock. Thanks for putting up with me. Hare Krishna.
Jai, thank you so much for the room. Really appreciate it. It's really nice to hear all of that. Anything else burning to say? We can end there. Appreciate your online sangha, and hopefully get to see you in person again soon.
Thank you so much.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pixel 7
right.
Pro.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so
And
much.
thank you so much, Sarika Prabhu. I always look forward to your
Appreciate
comments
the
and your
Shri
sangha.
Bhagavat-
Hare Krishna. Jai.
Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitya Gaur
Haribo.
Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Shankara Jaya Radha Damodara Radha 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 Damodara Radha Damodara Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radha Jaya Lalita Vishaka Lalita Vishaka Shri Radha Lalita Vishaka Lalita Vishaka Shri Radha Jaya Lalita Vishaka Lalita Vishaka Shri Jaya Lalita Vishaka Lalita Vishaka Shri
Yeah, you have to do it on Zoom. So, yeah, you have to turn on like the original sound or musicians. Yeah,
It's still Jai Gaur Jai Krishna Jaya Prabhupada
Jai Prabhupada.
Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya
Jai.
Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Prabhupada, Prabhupada,
Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Yes. I should have known that. Second record.
Jai, I got green shit Prabhupada.
Krishna Bhakti Krishna Bhakti Hoya Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Padaya Sukade, Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Iti Namane, Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Krishna, Utale, Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami. It's Vinamine, Namaste, Sarasvati, Godavani, Vicharane, Nevasesa, Munyavani, Vasacha, Sitarane, Namaste, Sarasvati, Devi, Godavani, Vicharane, Nevasesa, Munyavani, Vasacha, Sitarane, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Guru Matadeva Bless him in Bhagavad Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Vivasari Gauratam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gauratam Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Krishna, Ram Ram Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare 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 Krishna, Ram Ram Hare Hare Shakya Vishaka Shri Radhe Lalita Vishaka Vishaka Shri Radhe Jaya Lalita Vishaka Lalita Vishaka Shri Radhe Jaya Sundar Jaya Sundar Purahari Jaya 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 Sundari Jaya Sundari Gora Hari Jaya Jaya Sundari Jaya Gora Sundari Jaya Pancha Tava Tava Gora Hari Jaya Pancha Gora Hari Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jai Muni, Jai Jai Muni, Jai 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 Vishnu Bhagavan Jai Vishnu Bhagavan Satar Vatachar Asachar Zwanges Bhakti Sinatasai Swami Goswami Gita. And then to go to Vaishnava. Namacharya Shiva Hari Das Kapoor Premja Guru Krishna Eta Ravana Shri Advaita Gadara Shivasa Gaur Bhaktinam Shri Radha Krishna Shamakun Tiri Govardhan Shri the Damodar Ki Jai Shankar Ki Jai the Lord Sundar Ki Jai Gita Nagari Dham Ki Jai Gita Valley Ki Jai. All glories and devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories and devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories and devotees, Hare Krishna. Go to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, Hare Krishna. We're soon. Yeah, she did that. You know, think of all of this. Trying to figure out this noise cancellation thing. Trying to figure out this noise cancellation thing in the Zoom. Because you can't play instruments harmoniously. Doesn't it cancels it out. Haribol, Haribol. Right, Hari Krishna. This is the test. Test. Jai. Hmm. Check, 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 check. Got it. Ade, 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 Govinda, ade, ade,